Live.
Hey.
Hi, welcome to the channel, everyone. I'm MessyB20. And on this channel, we play a lot of tabletop role-playing games. Something I've wanted to do on this channel is to review more and more books and tell you if this book is a 5 out of 5 smiles or 0 out of 5 smiles. And today we're going over Paizo's latest addition to the Pathfinder Second Edition oeuvre, The Impossible Lands. And I've assembled a crack team of players who've agreed to meet up on a Saturday to discuss this ad nauseum. Why don't you introduce yourselves and your experience in tabletop role playing games?
Okay.
Victorybelle, you
I'm
go first.
I'm Victorybelle. Uh, usually I'm like introducing my character.
Yeah, you're introducing yourself.
Uh-huh. I've been playing with Messy B for about, oh my god, is it 2 years now? Oh my
Oh my
god.
gosh.
It was such a long time.
Time flies.
Uh-huh. But I don't know. I haven't really gotten into tabletop role playing until more recently. Like more I guess I was born off of the pandemic, really. I'll just go with that.
Okay, what games have you
Yeah.
played?
I play D&D with ya. Now you got me into Pathfinder, which I wasn't too happy about because I don't like beat trees. But it sounds like that's what D&D's doing now.
Yeah, so get used to it.
Um, but I'm really into Kids on Bikes, so I'm very excited about something Sam's got planned up. Um, I don't know. What else do I play? Other stuff, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
Board
thank you.
games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Who's next? Who's going next? Quickly, quickly.
I'll go next. I'll do it. I'll do it.
Okay.
I'm
Do
I'm CapinSham. Been playing long time player for like what 11 years. I love dating you.
it.
Messy B taught me
We're
how to play
dating.
like Messy B taught me how to play like 11 years ago. And D&D for the most part for a long time. Been exclusively playing Pathfinder for since it's come out, I guess. Vastly prefer it. DM'd one Pathfinder homebrew campaign, so I have mixed limited experience.
It was a good campaign,
It was
though. Oh my
good.
god, it
Thanks.
was
Ganked.
phenomenal. Yeah,
Oh
it
yeah.
it, it always surprises me when you're like, "Oh, no, it's my first time." I'm like, "Oh my god, shut
I'm
up."
like bullshit, but I know for real. You made me look bad on my channel. But make sure you check it out. If you've liked and subscribed and put on the bell icon,
Huh?
afterwards you should go to the YouTube channel and check out Doom Dynasty. Link, hopefully I remember to put the link somewhere. And last but not least,
Me! I'm listed as Kohane 1218 or whatever, or you could call me Sarah, or you can call me Brian's sister-in-law, because that's how I got roped into all of this.
yes.
Uh, I never played this kind of stuff. Um, uh, Someone in high school had tried to get me into D&D, but that was back in the 90s, so I'm dating myself there. Um, I started with Pathfinder with Brian, and I'm still learning how all of this stuff works. So
We all
I'm the
are.
noob.
And that's something important that we should go into before we even delve deeper. None of us are experts. I am obsessed with
Nope.
Pathfinder, but I'm constantly finding rules that I've done incorrectly. Like, I only hammered down exactly what the death rules were like 2 weeks ago on the behest of CapinSham. So, as the most senior player here, I don't know shit. So, if you're looking for expert advice, you should go elsewhere. But if you're just looking for a good time talking about these source books, you're at the right place. Yeah. Okay, so let's get started. Let's go and just do the review section right now. Let's review, and then we're gonna go into each individual location. Um, Or I guess we should do the general. I don't know. Well, I'll figure it out. What did you guys think of this book? General thoughts. Now, we split up a lot of the chapters between ourselves, so we can only speak in like a limited scope. But I'm sure we all went over like the history, the introduction, the history, the people of the impossible lands, the religion, and bestiary. So, with that being said, what do you think about this source book? CapinSham, you go first.
4 out of 5 smiles. Is that the gauge these days?
Yes.
Okay, so 4 out of 5 smiles. I think the overall narration, how the book is written, is a little hard to digest. I wish it was more like anecdotal, so you could like really like speed through it and really like get a sense of the setting.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like my one negative note. Other than that, like we've really only been playing in a Easton, which is more of like a like Eurocentric kind of traditional Fantasyland setting. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
looking for something more fantastical and don't know where to start, and you're looking for backgrounds that have a logic to them, so you don't have to like figure out how like crazy high fantasy is going to work, it's a good book for that. So I really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh huh. You go, Quay.
Oh, I was just going to bounce off of Sam's last comment about that it's definitely not Eurocentric, like fantasy. It's definitely more Asian and Arabian and all that kind of fun stuff. So it's even a little bit of African in there, just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
They have a different one for that kind of whole
Oh
thing.
yeah, the
You wanna go there?
Mwangi
Yeah.
expands.
Yeah.
And if you're
Mhm.
interested in that setting, you should definitely watch our Strength of Thousands live play. Link in the description. Which we're all part of, actually. We're all in that one. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah, and then I'll re-bring up kind of what Kohani said though earlier, and the idea that like there's a lot of information that's kind of like, oh, like here's like the resources and here's some geopolitics and blah blah blah, and we're like, why would I use this? But I like it in that sense, different from Sam in the sense that like I read it like a textbook, and I really like that. I really
Okay.
enjoy just being a nerd and reading a textbook
oh my god. Yeah.
narration style, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay.
I love that. So maybe
Science.
so if there's a target audience for that. I guess I echo the same feelings as Sam. We discussed the Book of the Dead, and that was all written from the perspective of like Geb, the Archlord, whatever, of the nation of undead, which they went over ad nauseum in that book, and then did even more in this book. And it was all from his perspective and how he became slowly into necromancy more and more and becoming a ghost and stuff. And that went down like. I almost said butter, but no one eats butter straight. That would be weird. But you know what I'm saying. It went down so
Speak for
smoothly.
yourself.
Mhm.
Whereas this, I had such a hard time staying focused, even though for like months on end it seemed I was like, guys, check out this Impossible Lands book. Are you guys check this out? Like, oh my god! And then when I got it, I'm like, I cannot for the life of me, like latch on to any of this, even though it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
It was really hard for me to really stay engaged. I wish there
Well,
was more narrative aspects.
from a cultural like perspective, like
Oh,
it's been done before where it's like, oh look, these are like new cultural lands that we're gonna add on. And when you do it from like a perspective of like someone's writing in their tome about their travel journal, you can be like, oh my god, what they just did is like very stupid and racist. And it's like, oh well, blame it on Gab. Like he's just some foreigner who just came into this land.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And that's how you like explain it. I think so in my head, like I guess in a meta stance, like that's how I learned to like read history textbooks though. It's like, oh, these are just like white men just like writing a textbook for me. And so all of this is very like dry and very kind of unemotional, and I like it that way.
Yeah, I
as
guess like thinking of it as like a companion piece and then like fills in and makes it more interesting for when you read like the other books. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, it is a fair point because when we were reading like Book of the Damned, great book, very unreliable narration. So if you're trying to get some like
Very.
real world history out of it, you're not gonna get it. It's entertaining for a source book. So I guess yeah, if you're looking at it from that perspective and you really just want like this is the land, this is the politics, this is the geography laid out, I guess this might be the only way you could write that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I did find some of it a little dry. I read the next section, which we'll get to, which is
I'm so jealous because I thought John Mary was gonna slap, but it was just we'll get to it. We'll get to it. So let's get started on the general. Let's see. Let me find a cute picture for us to rest on. This okay. So this little fucking thick ass. There. Okay. One thing I love about this book is the art slaps. The art, ooh, it just hits. It's hit after hit after hit. If you want a book where you could just open up and just look at the pictures alone and have a million ideas, this is the book to buy.
Yeah.
Like this and the Mwangi Expanse have the most interesting art, the most like evocative, and badass. Like I love the source books for it. Um, but let's kind of go over with what are the impossible lands and kind of going over like what it consists of, what's the flavor. We kind of touched on it before, but how would you characterize the impossible lands in general?
I mean, aren't they it's a bunch of land that has been kind of moved by magic and the fallout of many people's egos.
Mm-hmm.
So they all have a little bit of different flavor, but really they've all just been like taken over by like very powerful magical beings, and they've kind of shaped these countries in their image, and some of them to their detriment, some of them to their thriving. I don't know what the other word for that is, but yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not sure about like all the other places that were read, but like mine was very reading like it was like um these are isolated lands that are like, oh, like look at these new discoveries, and how are we going to like fit them into the greater world. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's a sense of like, I don't know, for some reason they were isolated in
Mm-hmm.
a magical way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. And I think like a lot of like what the area, the backdrop is like the battle between Geb and Nex, like two wizards who are just like narcissistic sociopaths, and they're the most powerful wizards, but the other one was there, and I gotta be more powerful than them. And so it started off as like a friendly competition that just blew out of proportion and ravaged like the surroundings so much so that magic is super risky to use, especially in the mono waste. Sarah, am I missing anything besides that? I know there's like
No,
other
no, that's
lands.
pretty much like what I what I gathered from it too is like these two um dicks um came in and fucked everything up. And there are peoples, loosely peoples,
Hmm.
that have tried to just live through it, and those that didn't and are now living through it. And then yeah, like Victorybelle said, the kind of like offshoot ones that weren't part of the main like mainland, the islands and the that kind of stuff and everything, they're just kind of like, we've been living a utopia, we don't understand what's going on, yay,
Please don't start the war again.
yeah, that'd be great.
Please don't. Yeah, because they both of them like left, and there's a lot of like fun things that we'll get into deeper. But of course, when we start out, we talk about the people of the impossible lands, and they provide kind of new perspectives on familiar ancestries while also providing new ones. They provide new information about dwarves, giants, gnolls, while also giving us what is it? Let's see. One, two, three, four, five new ancestries. So, what are the ancestries that popped out to y'all when you gave this a read through?
The Geniekin. That was the first one where I was like, that is badass.
I want to make a geniekin so
I
fucking
know.
badly.
Yeah.
So badly. So yeah, the geniekin, and they've provided like new material to like build out that ancestry and give more options, which I know Victorybelle just loves. Um, what else? What other like ancestries really popped out to you guys? And then we can go over the new ones like more in depth. I know the gnomes I thought were really fun.
Yeah.
I love a gnome. I love a gnome. And they actually have different houses based off of theorems, kind of like in Guild Wars. And if you want to marry into a scientific house that's better than yours, and one that has like a really good like basis in science and stuff, which I thought was a lot of fun.
Mhm.
And had a lot of adventure opportunities to have like a Romeo and Juliet scenario, but sciencey. Um, and any of the other like ancestors like pop out to you from some of their changes?
Yeah, I really like the I don't know if there are changes or anything, but I like the Nagas. I like when they kind of add the serpent folk in
Oh,
there.
oh hell yeah! And we got two flavors of Serpent Folk, like as
3.
playable
Were there
characters.
3? 2
Three?
or 3? Hold on.
It could be three.
Because, yeah, there's just the general Naga, but then
Mhm.
when you get into the... I'm getting there, sorry. Flipping through.
No worries.
Because there's the actual Nagaji
Mhm.
that actually look like serpents, but then the second one, I can't remember what it was. Can't ever
The
say it.
Vishkanya.
The Vishkanya, they have like serpenty stuff. They're
Mhm.
more humanoid looking, but they have serpenty stuff. So I would kind of put them in that same Naga-ish
Mhm.
category.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, that's always fun to just get more options, and I really like how they flesh them out a little bit more. Um, so we'll just head on over to the new ancestries, and the first one that we've been given fresh out of the oven is the Goron. Another plant people, but not to be confused with the Leshy.
Uh-huh.
Now these are
I
more
really
like
liked these ones.
Uh-huh.
ethereal. Would that be a good word to say for
Mm-hmm,
them?
mm-hmm. Yeah,
Because
ethereal, otherworldly.
the Leshies are like definitely what they are. Like we are plants, yay!
Mm-hmm.
And these are more like spirit of plant kind of people.
Yeah, leshies are like ensouled plants. They're like
Mm-hmm.
kind of woodland spirits in a way. And then the Goron are interesting because it's a result of the destruction of the land and the like biome in the Mana Wastes and Nex
Mm-hmm.
and Geb. So they're like, hey, this wizard guy who I can't remember what his name is, but it's related to Goran. It was like, hey, you need to make food. You need to make magic food that can survive. And then this food eventually became sentient and be like tried to make themselves look more like people. Like, hey, if I look like a person, maybe they won't want to eat me. And like they were able to get like rights as people, but
Mm-hmm.
they're just delicious.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
So like
so yummy.
so they're
Mhm.
like people who are always just like don't eat me and they're like constantly in danger of like getting attacked by animals that want to eat them or like people that want to eat them. I love them so much.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool, and like and definitely something that both of you kind of like went over is like the difference between leshies, because I think a lot of people are just like, well, we already have like a plant ancestry, why didn't you just give them like a big version? And for me, leshies are definitely more comedic. I feel like they're the baby like I don't know, the baby version or the baby ancestry of like the grand scheme of things, where you're really naive and you're just a goofy Gus kind of character, whereas Gorons definitely have more
Bite.
bite,
Yeah.
mystery, and more like an innate sadness to them, which makes them like differentiated enough, in my opinion. You guys can disagree.
Yeah, and they're definitely very they're still like kind of breakable,
Hmm.
but they have a lot of defensive stuff that I don't think Leshies get. You know, like because they have
Hmm.
all of their new like thorns and
Hmm. Hmm.
um
And you have like
I'm trying to look at it here.
the hard oak one as well, or
Oh
the
yeah, where they're
ancient
like
ash Goron.
where they're like made of hard stuff.
Hearts. They're made of hard stuff.
Exactly. I
Also,
love the pictures. I'm just staring at the pictures like,
I know
yeah.
the pictures are so pretty. Uh, is who here is the Goron your favorite out of the new ones, out of the new ancestries? From the Keshrishi, Nagaji, Vanara, and the Vishkanya? Or is the Goron your favorite?
Oh, I don't know.
It's like tied for me between that and the Kashrishi.
Well,
Yeah, the rhinos are so cute.
I know about the Keshrishi are my favorite.
I don't get the first picture though. Right? Are they wearing another Keshrishi's arms, like a shawl?
They
Or do
grow
they
it
have-
to
They have them.
climb better.
Yeah.
That's one of the heritage backgrounds, is that you can have them for climbing. Like you can't do anything else with them.
Okay, another pair of arms. Oh,
Mhm.
nice.
So you
Yeah.
can do whatever you want as you're climbing. So you have these little baby arms, and then you just have your big arms like doing whatever.
Holding your weapons or whatever.
Which doesn't make sense. Look at their big bodies. How is that going to help it climb? It's all in the legs.
they're-
I get it.
And they're the size of halflings. So they're just like these really like beefy little guys with horns. Like
But
that
they're
glow,
so
and
cute.
they're what?
I
They're
die.
they're like the teddy bears. They're
Yes,
like completely a deception because they're really like pacifists. And we don't
they're
wanna hurt
pacifists,
them.
and they feel others' emotions, and they
Exactly.
glow. They're empaths. I fucking love Kashrishi.
This one has an otter on a leash.
Yeah.
And she looks so happy. Like, look at this. Look at her. She's just so happy. She's like, hello. Hello. With her little otter. And let me get the
Too
otter in
cute.
the picture. Like, they're so cute. Like, and I love how we have another, like, specifically psychic ancestry. Because I feel like a lot of the times, at least from my experience in D&D, like they make the psychic book and they never touch it ever again. So it's nice to see that, like, we remember we made psychic things, like, here. I fucking love the Kashrishi. Does anyone have anything else to say about the Kashrishi that emboldens how obsessed we are with them?
Nope.
If not, we're gonna move over to the Nagaji, one of the many snake people. How do we feel about the Nagaji?
Love it.
Mhm,
Love it.
mhm. I love how they really went there and said, like, hey, you can have this giant, like, serpent snake head. You can have a snake tail and a human body. I really love how they gave you so many options to how you want to show off how snaky you are.
Mhm.
You know, or like this big, like, bulky snake person. So I really appreciate how they covered all their bases in this ancestry and not made like 20 million of them, if that makes sense. But how do you guys feel about, like, the backdrop, like the backstory, the characterization, their abilities? How do you feel? What do you think? Hot, not? How many smiles?
Probably 4.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I like snake stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I I don't know. I kind of saw them as like being like the most religious out of any of them. They're like, we are definitely connected to our snaky mommies, and I think was there a daddy too, or definitely a mommy.
Yeah, they definitely name dropped Nalan Vati a lot, which
Yeah.
we have a practitioner of in our homebrew long-term campaign, The War of Aeons, airing tomorrow. Is it tomorrow for that? Yes, tomorrow.
Gotta get ready.
1 p.m. Central. Oh my gosh. So yeah, they're very religious, and they kind of came off like one note in that regard, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I think that can drive a lot of.
Tell them to get the fuck out of the frame.
If you're not part of the game, you're not here. Okay, go.
Yeah, run, run, bitch, run. That's my brother.
Oh, what was I trying to say though? Like the different facets of religion, though, I think could give you, if you wanted to play one of these types, could definitely give you like a really good hook into a character. Because like I was thinking of the Whipfang one being like a total like church lady. Like it doesn't have to be an evil thing. It could be totally, you know, comedic and hilarious and, you know, just very obsessed with religion though. But then exactly, that's what I said.
See,
we can't hear him. Tell him to stop.
I know. We can't hear anything.
I was like, does he have opinions? Like, what's happening back there?
Yeah, he didn't read the book. He doesn't know.
No, he just hears me babble on and on and on about everything. So that's his only opinions, are my babbling. But yeah, like, but it could go different ways. Like, then you could have like the really cultish leader kind of one, like, come be part of the sneaky people. I don't know. That's the part I like about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you pick up on like a good point is that a lot of the times, like in recent or not recent, well, actually recent if you're looking at Dungeons and Dragons, of like how they make ancestries like this ancestry is always evil, they're always in a cult, and then with the like attachment to like locations and real world cultures, how that can get really fucked up and racist really quickly. And it's really refreshing to that Pathfinder especially is really dedicated to kind of making more nuanced depictions and making sure that they run through or have like POC writers from the cultures that they're representing to make sure that there isn't any obviously racist shit in their books. I think that's something to touch upon and really praise like Paizo about.
Like like their snake folk and the other one is very like set on like the concept of like subjugation at least. And so even if you're going to be playing a character, it's like, oh, you don't have to be evil, but there's like a subjugation part where you want to like control others and manipulate them. And here it's like, I mean, if anything, they're like, oh, well, if anything that like kind of connects like all the Nagas, I guess, is the idea of like, I mean, instead of subjugation, it's more of devotion. And so, yeah, that could be religious, but it could be anything else, you know? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because
this can be can be kind of positive.
Yeah, and they talk about how like a lot of the Nagas that left Nagajor like kind of left that kind of really caste like society and kind of like surveillance religious state and really enjoy their new freedoms and Jalmeri and stuff like that. So I'm really happy that they're giving us like that flexibility and not sticking to those kind of guns. Do we want to move over to the Vanara? CapinSham, do you have anything to add? I don't think you can hear me. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, I can hear you now. I think my Wi-Fi is breaking down. If I break up, let me know and I'll try to reconnect to something else. I think that's me.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah, I didn't like the snake people. I'm gonna say it.
Oh, go pop off. Talk about it. Speak to your truth.
Like not like super strong opinions, but like aesthetically, I don't like it. I don't know why I don't like it. It's like the lizard people in Skyrim. I never played Nargonian because I just don't like it. I don't like it.
You just don't like scaly things?
Maybe. I just don't want to be a snake.
Okay, fair.
So like
That's
out of
very fair.
all of them, I think I was the least excited to like build a character out of that.
Mm.
That's
But-
fair.
Nothing, not a hot take. Just like didn't
I like scales. Yeah,
I
okay.
don't like it.
Fair.
I like
Let's-
gross things. It's not snakes apparently. Not excited.
Absolutely. Well, we can move on to the Venara then.
Mm-hmm.
The monkey people.
Love
The
it.
little trickster monkey
Mhm.
people. How do we feel about them?
I'm excited about them. But
This is an interesting one.
they're very pigeonholed, even though they're
Yeah.
monkeys. Into being like, oh, they're monkeys, they're mischievous. So I mean, really, all you can think of is like, oh, yeah, I guess this is pretty much the Monkey King.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For some
the Journey to
reason,
the West.
no game, board game, tabletop role playing game. If there's a monkey, it has to be Sun Wukong. It
Uh-huh.
has to be like no matter what. Like you have to have they have to be that specific character, which like it's a lasting figure in literary like history for a reason, but like been there, done that. I've seen it. Like we've all
Mhm.
seen it.
The only positive that I could take out of it was that it could fit into all of these worlds in
Mhm.
very interesting ways. Because they seem like, depending upon the different types, they can really fit into the world and be a very caricature type of that world.
Mhm.
Like definitely gunslinger, definitely some kind of like priesty kind of thing, definitely undead, definitely could be an undead monkey. I thought that would be really, really cool. I don't know if you could do that.
Yeah, you
That
could
would
do
be
that.
Yeah, you could
an
definitely do
undead
that.
monkey. That'd be
Oh
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
Bristol Heritage, baby.
yeah,
Yeah, or that archetype.
exactly. And so
Mhm.
I just think I think it would fit for the people who like it.
Mhm.
I'm
Oh,
not one of
yeah.
those people who like it, but if that's your kind of like niche, like especially if you're a funny type person,
Mhm.
definitely go hog wild with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you definitely like playing like little mischievous, like little shitster characters, this is the ancestry for you.
Yeah.
Especially with like their religion is to like play
Mhm.
pranks on assholes who like subjugate people and to, like teach them a lesson through that. So having that weird like rule-based system for something so chaotic was an interesting push and pull. And just being like this would be make a really fun cleric for like a trickster deity, and I think you would just have so much fun with that. Playing more cleric, like my Pathfinder soapbox, my tabletop role playing game
No.
soapbox is always clerics are actually really cool guys.
No support ever.
They're cool. Yeah, well,
I don't have to
they're
heal you. I want to
cool.
do other stuff.
No, Brian,
Gross.
you're always going to be the support. Nah. You'll never be able to do damage. Never.
So what really excited me about this when I was reading everything, I want to make like an elderly one that's kind of like an Uncle Iroh kind of character where he comes off
Uh-huh.
as like really sage and like wisdom, but he's just really like low key mischievous.
mhm.
And I'm like thinking about everything that I could do with that. So I got excited from like a character. I got the most excited from like a character creation standpoint with this one.
Absolutely.
Like I already got him built. He's in there.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Anything else to say on the Venara? All right. Let's talk about the Vishkanya. They really didn't do it for me.
Yeah, I don't get them. They're just humans.
They're humans. This is like a versatile heritage for me. I don't know why it's its own heritage. You just poisons.
The only one that kind of got me thinking, and it would just be kind of shady, was the prismatic one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I would call her Teal Swana.
Teal Swan!
Because that's just that is exactly how I imagine that character being so full of her fucking self, and she's wrong.
She's wrong. She's just
She's wrong.
wrong.
But full of herself and just charismatic as can be. The light of the everybody loves her. Everybody wants to be around her. Everything she says is golden, but it's actually shit. You know.
Sociopath. If you got, what was it called? What was that documentary series we watched called about her cult?
I forget.
When we, after Renfest, we watched this Hulu documentary about this cult leader, Teal Swan. And how we were in the beginning of like the documentary, you're like, oh, she's not saying anything that bad. And then you slowly realize she's like waterboarding people and giving people like frog venom to make up traumatic experiences from their past that she could then manipulate into like, oh yeah, it's good. It's good. Check out Teal Swan, my problematic queen. But yeah, any other thoughts about the Vishkanya?
Boring. No, I don't like
Yeah.
it.
Scaly humans.
I've never played a human.
Yeah,
Honestly.
yeah, I would. Yeah, I would never play a human unless I had a really cool, versatile heritage to back that shit up.
Yeah, I am one. Like, I don't.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm already doing that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I agree. So, we kind of touched upon this, but I thought it would be interesting. Like, what kind of character would you make from all of these new options? And we already kind of talked about the Uncle Iroh or like the Teal Swan, but I guess we already kind of talked about it. Like, I would make a Keshrishi cook who's just like a chill, like psionic friend.
I think I would like to try. What's the type? Thorned Rose Gorin.
Oh, that'd be so pretty.
Just to play with it, just to see like how thorny you could actually be, but still, very pretty. If you get my drift.
Yeah.
That's the only one where I was like, I want to try that. I want to.
Oh hell yeah.
Or the genie.
Wonder Woman's so fucking bad.
Always love good genie.
I have been building a genie character for like a week now, and I keep on changing what I want it to do. Because they're just so fucking cool. They're so cool, and they have like a wish. I'm not going to get into it, but it's... I'm desperate.
Those would be my two then. Genie or Gorin.
I want to make like a Keshrishi druid who's just like a marshmallow and loves animals and speaks with like an ooh-woo voice.
Oh, that'd be so fucking cute.
I would love it. I would love it.
Please. Victorybelle, who would you make? If I had to put a gun to your fucking head right now, bitch. Gun to your head. What would you choose, and what would you make of it?
I don't know. I'd probably go with the Venara too. But yeah, I don't want to. I think the idea of like the mischievous part is more like, I don't know. I want to go more like fearless, I guess, or they just don't have a sense of like inhibition.
Yeah.
In that sense, like, so I think they're like supposed to be like one of their failed races, or I don't know, maybe it's just new, but the Kinder race for the Dragonlance book. They're supposed to be like, they're supposed to be like stout, like it's supposed to be like their halfling version. But like for some reason they don't have like the emotion of fear, so they just constantly like do stuff like touch random traps and like steal from people.
I think you would have a lot of fun with that. Just like seeing your other like characters.
Yeah. And so that would be good for like a monkey, I guess. It is kind of like the Kinder that they did in the books.
Absolutely. I have sworn off of D&D, so I just don't know the Kinder. I saw them. I saw that they had that source book, and I'm just like,
yeah. Well, I mean, I like the Dragonlance book stories, and the main character, one of the main characters is a Kinder, and the way they play him is really great. You know, he's like constantly stealing and being like, I didn't steal, it just fell in my bag, and now it's mine.
Yeah, we can homebrew this for sure. That can be a thing.
Hell yeah. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the individual cities that we went over, and the first one we're gonna go alphabetically as it is in the books. The first one being Alkenstar. Now, I'm familiar with Alkenstar from the Guns and Gears book. So I already have a familiarity with this setting, and there is an adventure path based in Alkenstar called the Outlaws of Alkenstar, which I hope and pray that someone will DM for me someday because I really want to play it. But Sarah, this is you were assigned this locale. What did you think?
Well, I haven't read any of the other stuff and everything, and I thought this one was like the weirdest one of all of these because
Really,
it's
really, okay, okay.
yeah, but because it's essentially it's Will Smith's Wild West,
Mm.
but with like
Yep.
dwarves and animal like people, like
Mm-hmm.
fantasy Wild West, because you've got this huge thing about the gun. What do they call it? The gun works.
Mm-hmm.
And I can just imagine like everybody there, they have a gun somewhere. It's
Mm-hmm.
America. Um, but also like very interesting how they just kind of sucked in the dwarves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like the whole time that I was reading through it, because I kind of read how Victorybelle does, where it's kind of like it's textbook, but it's also like adventure and like kind of like a little bit of everything. So I was like, so who would I be in this? And so
Oh
my thing
yeah.
was I would be the new, like, what is it, trait, I guess?
Mm-hmm.
What do they call it?
Oh, the archetype or the subclass or whatever, the
Yeah,
gunblade thing.
the trigger smith or something.
Yeah,
Is
the
it
trigger
called
brand, I think it
trigger
is.
brand?
Yeah.
I'd be a trigger brand dwarf that's like wanting to get out of the caves and the gunworks and all that kind of stuff. And I loved the first picture. I don't know if you can show it, Brian, of the chick with the
Oh,
pangolin
I have it up
photo.
right now.
Yeah, that's the one. I love it. That was all I was thinking about the whole time I was
Mm-hmm.
reading this. I was like,
It's
that's me.
her.
That's me.
Oh
I'm
hell
like
yeah.
dirty harrying this whole thing. I got my poncho. I'm gonna shoot people. I'm just gonna raise hell. Um, but other than that, that was my fantasy going on with my story. But the actual place is very interesting in its dichotomy of like the different peoples that are there and how they're sort of functioning in this modern-esque world because it's
Mm-hmm.
the most modern of all of the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I thought that was like the coolest part of the whole thing. And like, I mean, they really did beat it ad nauseum, like
Yes.
every little thing that you could want to know. But still, just really cool. I think it was the definitely the most Eurocentric, American centric out of everything just because
Mm-hmm.
it's got a little bit of everything. It's got pirates, it's got cowboys, it's got
Mm-hmm.
alligators that you wrestle and keep as pets. I don't know, it's got fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. But even then, even though it's like the most Eurocentric, we also get the dwarven Dungan hold.
Exactly.
I didn't really go. I kind of like breeze over it, and I'm familiar with it with like the Guns and Gears expansion. I think it's like gunpowder age, like China or
Yes.
yeah, and that was really interesting of how we have so many different cultures within this book. A lot of this is based off of like, as we mentioned before, India, and some like Egyptian in there, and some like Middle Eastern. But then with the dwarves from Duncan Hold, they were underground for so long during like the when things were hellish. Like this is like a post-apocalyptic like Pathfinder world, and they've like unearthed themselves and entered into Alkenstar. So there's two different, very distinct areas working together with their own kind of like culture, inspirations, and use of like this technology that I just found like fascinating from what I read from the Guns and
Yeah.
Gears.
And also it's interesting if you they didn't really say it, but I kind of inferred it that it's sort of like that's the inferior. Like the
Mm-hmm.
dwarves are the inferior of this place. All
Mm-hmm.
of the other ones who are more like above ground and stuff like that, they're all about the evolution, all about the science, all about, moving upward,
Mm-hmm.
onward, the economy, get the
Mm-hmm.
money. And the dwarves are like, we're just doing what we've always done. Like, just let us do our thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is why they did allow this kind of like place to develop around them, is
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, you're just letting us do our thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's interesting. They didn't really go into like if it was oppressive for them or
Mm-hmm.
not, but I would imagine that it would be.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And then we got the new I each of these like locations gives us new rules and new like options for character creation for player characters. A lot of this I think a lot of these books, these lore books are like DM fodder, but then you do get some things in terms of like class options. And the new class option, well, first they give you new animal companions and I think a new familiar. Oh, I guess it's just an animal companion, which is a wraith, which is like a weird, many armed, many legged dragon who can gulp blood as its support like thing. So it's just a wild fucking option for an animal companion. And then you also have the way of the trigger brand. Forever, I have always dreamed of being a gunslinger character, and I never will get the opportunity in the long list of classes I need to play. But the way the gunslinger works, its main feature is that you have an action that allows you to reload with that action. So a lot of them is like hiding, and you reload as you use the hide action, or you push someone as you reload, or you make a melee attack as you reload, or something like that. And way of the trigger brand is that you have something called combination weapons, where you can switch from a sword to a gun, um, and you have that versatility. But it was kind of worthless in Guns and Gears because there wasn't a lot of reason to do it. But now they've made the way of the trigger brand, which allows you to reload and then switch the type of like weapon you're using with your combination weapon. There was a meme on the Reddit that was like two by fours holding up a building, and it was the way of the trigger brand and their one like option to do that. And the building was like combination weapons. So apparently, if you're gonna do a combination weapon, you have to go trigger brand. But
Mm.
I don't know. But cool, right?
Yeah, I just like
Interesting.
I like the idea of that because the only reason I play melee characters and I don't even bother with my ranged weapons is because I hate wasting an action just to reload something. It drives me nuts. And I can
Mm-hmm.
understand if you're like, if you have a combination weapon, you would have to do some kind of action to reload and switch every single time. So why would you?
Yeah.
So that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Oh yeah.
I
Oh
like
yeah.
it. I like the idea of like something that Pathfinder has done with, and it did it in the Vista too with Numeria, is like taking these like opposing ideas of fantasy backgrounds and going, no, we can do this. It'll be fine. And this is like steampunk meets Lord of the Rings, which is really cool. And then you've got
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
like Numeria, which is like Star Trek, Mad Max
Mm-hmm.
meets fantasy realm. I really like that.
Mm, oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. They make sure we get all of our flavors, you know. And that's why I love Pathfinder. I don't know shit about the shield marshal archetype. It's really specific to that
It
area.
was, yeah. The only thing I have to say is it's very bro. It's like, ugh.
Can you go deeper into that? How do you mean? What do you mean by very bro?
Maybe not bro, maybe Blue Lives Matter more.
Oh
Like it's
no.
just very like the whole time I was reading this, I was like, this is for the type of person who wants to be the vigilante. Like
Mm-hmm.
I know that what I think is absolutely right and legal, and everybody else needs to pay for it. Like very much
Mm.
that way, and everything that they get for it is that way. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, just very lackluster for me. I mean, if you had a large party that was playing in this area, it'd be kind of fun to
Mm-hmm.
have them, but I could never see them adventuring anywhere else.
Yeah, yeah, it's very specific, and it's cool to have as an option. But yeah, I agree. I don't think I would ever like choose it.
Mm-mm.
But who knows? Maybe next week I'll change my tune. The next one we have is Bopon.
Oh, that's mine.
Tell us all about it.
All right. I took from this, I guess earlier. So yeah, I guess the Alkensar. Is that what
Mm-hmm.
it is?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it wasn't really isolated? So maybe it's just my region. Maybe there are other regions though. I don't know. But
Mm-hmm.
this one was like, oh, it's just like an island region that's been kind of like hidden away. And just kind of introduced now. There's a little bit of history where I guess two explorers had found them, um, and they got like just wrecked, and they had to run away. So that was a lot of good storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, something about like I think it it's kind of like separated in the sense that like naturally there's like the ocean has like storms and you can't get
Mm-hmm.
to it. It's also hidden. There's like maybe a doorway that I guess the Pathfinders had, but um, the way to get to it was that like I think all the founders had to like fight each other and kill until one was remaining, and they decided not to do it, and so they were like, okay, well we'll just leave this world alone. Um, And so I think in a way it was a good way to kind of like separate and say, oh, now we're introducing it because I don't know, some very Marvel esque. I mean, honestly, I kept thinking of things like Wakanda or
Mm-hmm.
even what is it, Seven Rings, I guess. Um, Kind of like this hidden away world that was just kind of introducing a new culture of diversity.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like it does feel a lot a real Asian, I think, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I don't know. In thinking of it like kind of like Wakanda, it's kind of weird. There's some parts that don't really make sense. Like they're able to strive on their own, so you would think that they'd get like really like I don't know. I'd hope. I guess I'm coming off of Marvel in the new movie, but
Mm-hmm.
like their society would be like super cool and advanced in some way, because they really push on the whole like oh they really have a lot of like the magic in their
Yeah.
lineage. So
Yeah,
I'm
can
like
you?
okay,
Yeah, what's because I saw all these like Fey options and they really expanded like the Fey influence, like ancestry, like feats.
yeah.
So what's that
I don't
all
know.
about?
I don't understand it because maybe I don't read the books, but something about like the first world. Is that
Hmm.
like the new world? Is that like the Western world, or is
No,
that
that's
like
like
a different
the Fey
dimension? A different.
world. Yeah,
Okay, okay,
that's
okay,
where Doom Dynasty took place.
okay. So something about like from the first world came a lot of magic, but one of the gods. I'm not gonna say it. I don't want to butcher it.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
uh, but it's QXAL. So Saul
Hmm.
Call. Um, was kind of like this oppressive kind of monarch god, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, but I think he was like overthrown in some way
Hmm.
by the people. But like I think some of like that magic from the first world still kind of leaks in, and so you know I would assume that that magic is a good source of like resource and kind of advancement. And they're like, oh, but you know they're all shamans, and you know, um, and I get the theme of the Fae is like industrialism isn't that great, but they always use the word industrialism in this book um,
Hmm.
to kind of talk about their economy, but really it's like, oh, but all they care about is like baking and textiles and silks, and I'm like, okay, that's not very advanced. I mean,
Well, I mean, everyone needs
you can't
textiles.
create you can't create a metropolitan over baked goods. Like, fuck your meringues.
Well,
Like-
did anyone else read this section? Because I was already.
I didn't, but
overwhelmed
I
from
wish I
Mary.
did.
I did. I did kind of have the same sentiment where it's like they're almost like choosing to stay out of the world and bake their pretty.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like,
Or other than Wakanda, it's kind of Avatar-esque. God, it's very
Mhm.
Disney in general, but
Yeah.
like I think like before you get to like the main city, it's all but like really dangerous jungle, and there's only one city, so everything else is kind of like outliers, like tribes, I guess. Um, of dangerous land, so it's very Avatar-esque, and so which is great. I thought it was gonna be like, oh, like very dangerous rainforest, but they are able to kind of overcome in their very unique magical way, and then you get to like this city that's like, oh wow, it's very advanced, but no, it's all like, oh, there's only 8,000 people here, and like,
Yeah, but what's
Uh,
wrong?
What I think would be cool is the opposite of what I was just saying with the shield marshal. I think it'd be cool for these people to be in other places and see
Mhm.
like how wild it is to them. Like that's what I thought would be really cool. Is
yeah,
how simple they are, but yet very rooted in large history and their connection to first world and all of that kind of stuff, and then put them in places like Geb and Next and the Manaways and be like, like I thought that would be cool. Their
Oh,
actual place, I don't know. I mean, I could see other people coming there and being like, "Oh, this is a fun little getaway. All right,
Mhm.
yeah.
we could
I
have
think
a
that's
little
where they push
downtime
it
here. This
towards.
will be fun."
Which that's like what they're like. So they kind of allude. I don't know if it's like a spoiler alert or a plot alert, I guess. But the Monarch, it is again like the new movie in Black Panther. The Monarch is like creating an army and is like trying to like in secret, and he's getting ready to kind of like reveal their nation to the world as like a superpower and a threat. And I'm like, well, okay, cool. What are you gonna do with like your soaks? Like how are you a threat? And they're like, oh, these are all like people who are of like short stature. They're all beast kin who are very small, and they don't even fit their city. And
They're just gonna get wasted.
yeah,
Are they like really powerful with magic because they're fae? Is that
Yeah,
like
Yeah.
that's my question. I'm just like, well, why
Yeah.
would you need to do all this other shit if you're like fucking magic-y, like to the nines, like to the core?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I want to read this now because this one I didn't even see and the art looks crazy.
Yeah, the art is very like everyone has an animal head and a human body, and I was just like, ooh, this is a twist. And then this little scene that I have up right now of like this full man like carrying this like dog-faced woman with like a human body away from all these like animal people. I don't know. It looks intense. It looks fun. It looks I don't know. I think this would be a fun location, but I didn't read it, so.
Mhm.
Yeah, it just sounds like really like, and there are a lot of isolationist cultures in Pathfinder. So this
Mhm.
kind of like follows some of the other stuff that exists. But I like the fae flavor.
But to move on to a completely different vibe, let's talk about Geb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oops, I didn't know we could talk about Geb. Okay. Um I'm shocked that they went over Geb even more, even after like a full book of it. Tell me more. Who what do you think of Geb?
I liked it.
Yeah, I like it.
The way that I explained it to my husband was, it is the fantasy world of the mummy from The Mummy, the movie. Like,
Mhm.
I could see him, like,
Oh, it's the Scorpion King.
this is his D&D campaign. This is his this is his shit. He loves this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
It's a land of the dead. So yeah. It's very interesting to, I guess, climb the social rung,
Yeah.
because the top of the rung is the dead, and
Mhm.
like they say, the quick and the dead, I think I said it. So the people who
Mhm.
aren't dead yet are the quick, and the dead are, they even have their own hierarchy, because they
Mhm.
have, the skeleton people that are in the fields and stuff, and then they have these dark lords, blood lords, and all that kind of stuff. So it's very interesting.
Oh, I
Very
like it.
interesting.
Oh yeah,
Um,
what was most interesting to me, and if you want to check out our review of the Book of the Dead, definitely check out the YouTube channel where CapinSham and I go on a deep dive. But what we found really interesting is how they thought of every different aspect of how an undead city would work. And it's really fucking dark. It's something that if you want to go to this location, you gotta let your players know that there's cannibalism, slavery, like all these like dark, really fucked up aspects. But in a way, that's the only way an undead society would work, since they need to eat like human flesh.
Yeah, and if you liked what's in here, read the Book of the Damned. It's written from Geb the wizard's point of view, and it has a very dry, tired sense of humor, that he's just like this old man who really believes that he's achieved like the perfect utopian society, and he
Mm-hmm.
sees it as a really like egalitarian thing that he's done. And then when you really like, they like introduce letters from other people who have been there, and they're like, no, this place is terrible, don't go here, it's evil. But he's like, oh, like, Geb is perfect, I've created the perfect structure, you don't have to worry about resources when you're all dead, and all this other stuff.
very true.
So read it, it's good.
Mm-hmm. There's even like an adventure path called like the Bloodlords. I think it's the Bloodlords that is all set in Geb, really utilizing all of this lore. Like all the characters, all the player characters are expected to be undead. And I pray for someone to run that adventure someday.
I
Be
would
fun.
love to. I'll
Be
put that
so
one on my
fun.
to-do list. I would love, I mean, even like, I'd love to play, but like, if I gotta run it, I'll run it. Cause like,
Do it! Do
I
it! Do
want,
it!
I want to camp like a horror, like spooky season campaign in Geb.
Yeah, yeah,
Give me
do
it.
it, do it, do it, do it, do it. But
Do it.
it's definitely really dark. But I didn't read this. So what did you guys like learn from this area? And then we can kind of go into the little adventuring portion. Like what was the standout feature of Geb and its cities, I guess, of Mekatar and Lued?
Honestly, what I liked the best was these weird little dwarves again. Just like in Alcanzar, the Culanot dwarves.
Chewing on.
No, that's not how you say it. I'm sorry. I'm saying
No
it
worries.
wrong.
Coolanet? Cool.
Coolanet dwarves.
Mhm.
Like, they're just like the coolest, like, indigenous type people, totally connected to the earth, worshiping life. Everything's wonderful. Everything's great. It's like, and they're literally like underneath all of these dead people. That's weird to me. Like, their whole civilization is underground. They're like mole people, and
Mhm.
they're underneath all of these dead people. And to me, that's weird. Where it's like the living are underground and the dead are above ground. That's weird
Mhm.
to me. But I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's I we didn't learn about them in like the Book of the Dead.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that I guess I shouldn't have shat on it so much and be like, why are we
Well, that
going over
makes
this
sense because
again?
like, if they're not under like Geb's dominion, he wouldn't talk about it in his book.
That's true. That's
This is
very
where
true.
the
Unless to talk
unreliable.
shit.
Yeah, to
All
talk
he did
heavy
was talk
shit.
shit about literally every single person other than
He's
himself.
like, yeah, next is a
Yeah, it's
hat.
What did they say? The mountainous terrain of Geb
Mm.
are these underground dwarves known as the Kulanek, and they have a whole civilization underground. I think that's the coolest part. Like,
Mm-hmm.
genius when you have all of this craziness happening above ground. Just stay underground. It's all better down there.
Just
Better down there.
you don't need to deal with all that.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we get to move on to the chapter I read, the John Mary, and I feel like it has a lot of like overlap with Bopon, where I'm just like, oh, this is a nice area. Like out of all the ones that we've covered, I'm just like, yeah, this is nice. It definitely it takes a lot of influence from like Southeast Asian like stories and fables and like cultures, which I found like really refreshing and interesting. It's a I think it's an is it an island? I'm not making this. Yes, it's an island country of people who came from the continent of Rudran, which is like the kind of Indian influenced continent, and they settled here after being hosted by Nex, and apparently they just partied for too long. So Nex was like, "Just go to this island. You're using up too many of my resources," and eventually they were able to kind of like push out the Rudrani like kind of overlords and make their own culture and free like genies and like geniekin and really become like a very varied ancestry locale where like genies are there and they walk amongst like less magical people. They're really into kites. And they have like two different locations, Niswan and Pradahanam. Pradahanam being kind of the more fishing village, where Niswan is the more metropolitan of like pagodas built on pagodas. So it's really nice. It's like definitely what I imagine to be a vacation spot amongst like the Next and Geb. This is where you would want to live and retire in. Um, I had a difficult time like differentiating Niswan and Prada Hanam. And the kind of the only things that really like stuck out to me were the Heaven and Sky like tournament, because you know I love monks and you know I love a tournament. And there's some mysteries on why the the great elemental houses were kicked out or disqualified. And then Prada Hanam, they kept on referring to something called the Murmur Dome and then never really gone in depth of what that is all about, which I guess is like an opportunity to fill in the blanks for a DM. But it was like, one day the Murmur Dome suddenly was erected with 4 towers surrounding this big building, and everyone was like, I don't know what the fuck that is, but let's live by it. Maybe something awful will happen with it. Who knows? And then they would reference it and be like, but the watchful gaze of the Murmur Dome watches over them, mysteriously and ominously. And I'm like, okay, what else? So that's my main like annoyance with it. But I thought it was cute. I thought it was interesting. Um They gave us some cool new They have a lot of fucking cool shit new weapons. They gave us a new familiar, the Seru, which is an elephant. A tiny little elephant familiar, which I found
Oh my
fun.
god, it's so cute! I want it!
Well, you have to adventure to the shores of Jalmari.
I'm going to summon it.
And then they gave us the Student of Perfect. They gave more options for the Student of Perfection archetype, which is like a really martial monk archetype, utilizing elements. So if you really want to live your Avatar: The Last Airbender fantasy, this really adds to that opportunity. And then even going so far as an archetype of an archetype is the Gemini Heaven Seeker, which is all about like lightning and like sky stuff, which I'm just like, you have to already invest in an archetype to get this archetype, which I found kind of annoying. And then
So-
if you already
What I hate.
invest what, go ahead. Something you would hate,
I
Victorybelle.
hate it. I'm reading Skyseeker right now, and I'm like, oh my god, you need to have 2 different stances just to get this? I hate it.
Oh yeah, to get another stance. And then if you've already built your concept around like fire or earth or water, they say, no, now all you're gonna do is lightning stuff. I'm just like, oh.
I hate it.
Yeah, it's like, if I've already invested so much in like a specific element, I don't want to just change my flavor. So I kind of didn't like that. But yeah, so that's how I feel about Jelmary.
Hey, but this old monkey guy, that's Uncle Iroh.
Yeah, he's cool. Yeah, this is pretty much CapinSham's character that she discussed.
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we go over to the monoways, which I found so fucking cool. I love the monoways. So I don't know if anyone else like read this besides me, but the monoways. So we already discussed about how Nex and Geb hate each other, and they've had these 100-year wars, battles against each other, and they fucked up the magical essence so much that they've fucked up the whole environment between the two cities so much that magic works erratically there. They've created these pools of pure magic that are just like rainbow goop that if people drink or like dip themselves in, they become mutated, sometimes horribly, sometimes to their advantage. And now there's like cultures that are built up around that where giants like dip their newborns in this like magic goop hoping for like cool superpowers. The wild storms happen, so if you cast a frost spell, you might get a cone of cold casted upon yourself. So magic is really risky to use here, and so there's whole wizard gangs that try to like chart out whether magic or other shit is what? We are filming! Tell him to leave.
We're filming.
Okay, thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Are you guys getting ready? Okay.
Well, we'll
Very-
wrap this up soon.
It's very desert steampunk. I really like it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's like what is that movie where they're like in like moving cities that came out? I think it had Hugo Weaving in it. Mortal Instruments or something like that.
Mm-hmm. I've never watched it, so I wouldn't.
It was a book.
Well, I never read it, so I wouldn't know. You just said it was a movie.
Well, I didn't read the book. I didn't watch the movie.
So yeah, it's fucking cool as shit, right? So yeah, I love the monoways. That's all.
It seems like if you don't want to go very magic heavy, this would be really cool for like going very barbarian and using siege weapons and vehicles to kind of traverse and go through this kind of like territory. That would be really fun.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think they didn't really add a lot of like new options and stuff. It's really specific to the mono-way. It's like using a grenade of like pure energy and like what these like magic storms will happen if you use magic while there during like a monostorm, I guess.
I guess maybe you could take it on
Mm-hmm.
to a new area. Like I mean, I guess it would be kind of a permanent kind of wild change, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you want to get mutated, you go here.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, I'll just go back to, Nex.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
I
the
got a
next
tail
part.
now. Yes. Next.
Next.
This is what I
read
wish
this
I
one.
chose. Like, I wish I chose this one as my reading.
Next is wild. So like basically Geb and Nex both had this idea of like these societies, and they went about it in completely opposite ways. And next, to fight back, Geb created these like factories to create basically like flesh warped people to be their army. And then Geb was like, well, I want an easy army too, and then like rose the army of the undead. And that has kind of like set the stage of what these countries are today. So like next
Cool.
Nex has been like ravaged by his own like magic and hubris. It's basically built on wishes. He just made like a bunch of wishes and wish spells to create this whole country and this society. And now that he's been gone so long, like the consequences of all those wishes have just been like left unchecked. And it's created a lot of like instability within the country. So like their main city is Quantium, and it's like a circular city that's built up against a body of water. And then patrolling in a semicircle outside the city are these two giant golems. They're like 30 stories tall. And they're just like constantly just walking around. They like peek into the city to like make sure things are fine, but it causes like a metronome of earthquakes in the undercity that are just constantly there, and it drives people crazy. And then there's like the upper echelon city where like the high class live, where it's just like a funny thing that happens in the background and like lets them keep time. And in this city, they like emphasize how like how weird everything is, and how like go there if you're a tourist, but only go for a day, because things are so fucking weird there that like you're just overstimulated with weird. And like everything is a million colors because the ground is reflective, and there's like hundreds of lamps of all these different colors. So like you might even want to go into the undercity just for like a sensory break, but then the undercity is just full of criminals and like weirdos and flesh warp people, and like it's a weird place. That's like they probably said that every other sentence. They're like, Quantium is really weird, and then they would just like move on to the next thought. And they're like, it's super weird though. That was the way the whole thing was done. But there's like 3 cities in Nex that are a big deal. The next one, I'm trying to remember how to say it. It's like Onepion, which is more of like it's not their capital, but like it's where kind of their center for economy is. There is something that exists under the streets called the Bath, where basically over time of like magical runoff into the groundwater and like people dumping bodies, it all kind of churned together and created a giant sentient ooze that lives under the city.
Oh, cool.
That's so fucking cool.
Cool.
And like sometimes it'll like creep up through like grates and like try to talk to people, but like it speaks like its own language, and it like tries to like give quests to adventurers to like get justice for some of the people that have been thrown into it. And the Bath in its sentience is getting stronger, and it's like really freaking out like the authoritarian figures there. Like the whole Nex is ran by this crazy council of 3 and 9, and they're like just now starting to get a little nervous about what the ramifications of the Bath could be. And now all these murderers are having to find other dump sites for their bodies because they're afraid that the Bath can like identify them. And it's like a whole thing there.
I'm obsessed.
This is amazing.
The moment I finish this stream, I'm reading this because I thought Jamiri was gonna be the one that like yanks, and then I looked at next and I'm just like, I fucked up in designing these. Like...
So yeah, so you got Quantium, which is like the capital, and then you've got Onepion, which is like this other like mecca, and then everything's connected through this road called the Circulation, because these are really the only 3 habitable places in Nex. And the third place is called, I don't know how to say it, it's like Icanus. And it's their military center. You live an entire military life. If you live in there, you are part of the military. The entire city wakes up at 4 a.m. and then they have like certain things that they have to do, and then there's like strictly enforced quiet hours at like sundown, and everything you do in your life is very regimented.
What's with all this meat on the... buildings. In
Okay, yes.
Onepian.
I'm trying to remember what it's called.
Tell me about this meat.
So there was an explosion in one of the Flesh Forge foundries where all of these like where they like churned out their mutated army, and it caused all of this like flesh and meat to like overflow into the streets. And it's not like it was like this disaster that like they're still trying to figure out, like, was it terrorism? Is it Geb like trying to like restart the war? Is it local insurgents? Because there are so many people who are like dissatisfied with their lot in life and next that they kind of have this like vigilante like thought about everything, and you have these sects of people who are constantly trying to like fight the council. So they're like, either it was like domestic terrorism or Geb wants to like start the war again, and then like the city like politically is divided between wanting to start a war with Geb and like really not wanting to do that again. But there's a name for it. It's called the Awful. The Awful is this overflow of flesh that spilled out. It covers like half of one of the sectors of the city, and it like attacks people. It's like poisonous. It's just like all of this gross magical flesh that had been accumulated to like churn out mutant people, and it just overflowed.
I fucking love Nex. I think I love Nex.
Scuff is from?
No, she's
Oh.
not. But there
'Cause I
are
was
like
gonna say, maybe it was just an angsty teen that caused the awful.
I don't
Yeah.
who could it be? Yeah, so like the there's so much more to these cities. Oh yeah, OMPN. Like I missed something. So a good portion of that city is actually under a big glass dome, and it's a giant greenhouse. They're all about growing plants there. So like Amaya. But like once every like 3 weeks they open the sphere to like air it out to keep it from getting too hot, and then they like let travelers in, and they like have all these festivals. And it sounds like it could be cool, but like underground is the bath, and it's got like this other weird thing happening. But yeah, and then there's this this other thing called the Miasphere, where is kind of what Brian talked about, that kind of has bled into the mana wastes, and it's this rainbow body of water, but it's like magically caustic, and if you don't have like the right kind of boat, it'll like eat your boat. If you don't have the right kind of armor on or like headdress when like it decides to rain, all the evaporation from this like crazy magical soup creates like an acid rain, and it creates crazy colored clouds, like you can never see the sun. It's just like weird rainbow up there all the time, and it's just like a crazy place.
Sounds fun.
So what I'm getting from Impossible Lands, to kind of like starting to wrap things up, because I think a lot of the bestiary and like the religion stuff we kind of covered, is that out of all the like source books, this has the most variety. I mean, with Avestan, it's all like so European centric, and like the differences between them are so like minimal in comparison. Like I cannot begin to tell you what the difference between like Brevoy and like Taldor is. Like they're the same. But with the Impossible Land, it's in the amount of differences, and they use the fantasy setting to its fullest, I feel. And that's what I love about it. Any other closing thoughts?
No, I'm excited. Yeah, I mean, I feel like you can kind of do campaigns in all of them. It'll be kind of. I don't know how you'd be able to kind of connect them, like with if we're doing our homebrew campaign and being like, instead of deciding where we went to, we're just gonna go to next, and then be like, oh, and then we're gonna go to.
Isn't the heist plan, isn't that an Alkenstar?
Sure is.
Okay, so we're gonna
so we
be
can
able
read
to
up on
go.
that. Okay.
Yeah, go near the mana
the
waste.
west. We're going to the western,
Yeah.
the Wild West.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Seven does not
Sure.
fuck. Seven doesn't fuck with this side of the world. She's stuck to Adviston, so.
Oh yeah. all the little like background stuff. It's gonna be
She's
be
like,
good.
I hunt monsters and people just choose to live there with them. Like they can move. I'm not helping them.
I don't know. I really want to go. I want to go to Gib so I can use my boneyard lure finally.
Oh yeah. Oh, trust me.
Yes.
Like I've
Pharasma's like nobody talks about her and Gub. They hate her. They hate her.
Y'all should be dead. This should not be a city.
I made death for a reason. Go be dead. Don't be undead.
And he like Gub is literally just like, fuck you. I can do what I want.
But I also don't like Urkathala. So what would you rate this book out of 5 smiles? 0 being the least and 5 being the most.
I was gonna go originally with Catton's 4 out of 5. I kind of want to do 5. I haven't read the other one, so I can't compare. So I guess that's my first one. I love a good, diverse lands book. I think for me, there's one going back to D&D, but D&D has like Eberron, and
I love Eberron.
I think the same idea is that they did Eberron was like one huge continent. They're like, look at this little continent though. We gave you like a paragraph about it, and everybody like, I have not done an Eberron campaign that hasn't been in that little continent because it's like a random mystery continent, and people are just doing like homebrew shit of what they want to do for their campaign, and I love it.
Yeah, so 5. So you 5 out of 5 smiles.
Yeah, I don't like feat trees, but if you give me the ability, if you give me a land and say go at it, do whatever the fuck you want, and go on tangents, yeah, I'm into that.
All right.
I don't know.
Oh, go ahead, Captain.
I don't know when it happened, but the video is gone from the Twitch stream.
Oh.
I have no idea how to fix that.
Okay, we're going with audio. This is great.
I wish I was recording as well, but I was like, oh, the Twitch stream.
No, because he made. Well, okay, so
I was recording.
You should make.
Oh no, it's fine. It's fine on my end. So.
Oh, maybe my phone just sucks.
Wow.
Your phone just sucks.
I'll just say my phone sucks.
You should go podcast.
Yeah.
Ignore me.
But Kohani, how many smiles would you give this?
As
your first setting book.
I think it's a little much. So kind of like maybe like 4 full smiles and then like because it is very like schoolwork. Like it's not like you're definitely gonna read this for deep like facts and knowledge and all that other kind of stuff and everything. But from the perspective of somebody who doesn't know jack squat, awesome. Like it's like mind blowing. It's like, ooh, there's so many possibilities. So from that perspective, definitely 5 out of 5. But for somebody who kind of knows what the hell's going on, and you just kind of want to like find out, it's like I said, it's 4 stars because it's really cool shit. But it's definitely like, for that last one where it's kind of like,
it's hard to get through. It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's definitely a good reference. Like if you're just a player, like because you said, it's definitely for a DM. But if you're just a player, it's great to have for a reference, and you're like, oh yeah, cool, and I can like put together this little thing and this little thing. Yeah, that's awesome, cool, all right. But
yeah, if you love to create really in-depth backgrounds for your characters, as a player, this would be a really cool book to have.
So, CapinSham, how many smiles?
4 to 5. Only because it is very dense, and I kind of wish I have done a little bit of a 180 on the narration, that because you're trying to explain all of these different lands, and it almost has to be in this kind of context to be reliable. I do wish that maybe to break it up, there was some kind of like first person account of events or a description of the setting from somebody who's there to help like contextualize, because some of this stuff is just so out there that I have a hard time like
Yeah, and even
visualizing
in like
it.
in the day of, I'm just like, I wish it would just be one person. Like I had such a hard time. Continue.
Yeah. And like I don't need like whole sections or whole chapters, but like something that they did like in Book of the Dead was to kind of recontextualize where you are in the historical events. They stepped away from Geb's narration and they had like a letter from somebody from the Pathfinder Society who
Mhm.
was researching Geb and like spent some time there and like how terrible it was. Something like that, or like, you know, an account from a local about current events or about the bath or the
Mhm.
Miasphere River. Like, what is like, how bad is that really? Like, just to break it up a little bit and to help really put, I don't know, a visual and some context on some of this really out there stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'm also 4 out of 5 smiles. Yeah, I need that narration bit to kind of contextualize and to kind of like make me grasp on to things. Um, and I really wish they add. I'm just a greedy little bitch, but like I wish they gave us more gadgets from Alkenstar, because like the whole inventor class is predicated on like building gadgets, and there's so few compared to like alchemical items. That I wish they like added a little bit more with this opportunity exploring like Alkenstar. um but I was really happy with like the variety of locations, how they really pushed the fantasy worlds. I loved like thinking of like, oh, someone used the wish spell a whole bunch of times, like having the gameplay or like something you could do in game, like the character use that, so it's cool. And then I love the character options, as I mentioned. So yeah, and I also love that this isn't really a go-to like locale or a go-to culture to like pull fantasy narratives from. It's a lot of tabletop role playing games for so long have always been Eurocentric, 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 and I love like how Pathfinder has really committed, like straight from the gate, like to really exploring these different locales and these different like backgrounds in a respectful and interesting way. Um, so yeah, 4 out of 5 smiles. Definitely would recommend. I also recommend like buying it in like a hardback because it's just so pretty. Like everything is the imagery is so like nice. Will make a good like coffee table book for like a nerd. But that being said, thank you so much for watching, and thank you guys so much for talking about this really nerdy book with me. I hope you guys had fun reading it and talking about it. I appreciate it. Definitely be on the lookout for our homebrew campaign that's streaming every Sunday. Well, every other Sunday at 1 p.m. Central, and then the other Sundays we play Strength of Thousands. Be on the lookout for my birthday stream extravaganza. We'll be raising money for an AIDS charity. Definitely check that out, and we'll be playing a lot of different tabletop role playing games, not just Pathfinder. Um, that's all. Bye bye.
Bye. It was really
Goodbye.
fun.
Yeah.